Is this the end for Gaza? Israel's shock recognition of Somaliland might be a cover for mass relocation. Meanwhile, the anti-Houthi coalition in Yemen is literally blowing itself apart. On March 5th, 2025, nearly 9 months ago, I made a video about a big plan of Netanyahu for changes in the Middle East. Recently, while traveling in Brazil and Portugal, I spoke about that plan, looking back at it, and most of what I spoke about then has come to pass. One of the few items that had not was Somaliland. And I can now officially say, I told you so, about that one as well. A month ago, it had not yet happened, according to my prophecy. But now, as crazy as it may have sounded, it has come to pass. On Friday, December 26th, Israel became the first UN member state in the world to formally recognize the Republic of Somaliland as a sovereign, independent state. Prime Minister Netanyahu and Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar signed a joint declaration of mutual recognition with Somaliland's President Abdirahman Mohammed Abdullahi, also known as Iro. Netanyahu explicitly stated the move was in the spirit of the Abraham Accords, aiming to integrate Somaliland into a broader regional alliance. Both nations have agreed to establish full diplomatic relations, including the immediate appointment of ambassadors and the opening of embassies. While the official Israeli government statements highlight economic, agricultural, and technological cooperation, several major outlets have reported on the underlying refugee negotiations. Sources including Modern Diplomacy and the Times of Israel report that the recognition is linked to a plan for Somaliland to accept Palestinian refugees from the Gaza Strip, which I had reported to you 9 months ago. The Somaliland government has previously denied these specific terms, likely due to their potential for domestic backlash. However, regional intelligence, including reports from China and Egypt, suggests that this voluntary migration plan was a central pillar of the deal. Israel's interest in Somaliland is not just humanitarian. It is a highly strategic point with critical military implications. Somaliland's location on the Gulf of Aden provides Israel with a critical foothold to monitor Houthi activity in Yemen and secure the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, one of the two critical chokeholds in the Red Sea for Israeli shipping heading to the port of Eilat, and allow for much more frequent and safe attacks on Houthi targets in Yemen. Reports indicate Israel will provide Somaliland with advanced surveillance and tracking technology to help manage their newly declared control over their own airspace. Also, new reports indicate that underground hangars have been built in the Berbera airport, hangars which are used for advanced fighters and drones, items that Somaliland does not own. Hint, hint. The recognition has caused an immediate diplomatic firestorm. Somalia's federal government in Mogadishu has condemned the move as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and other regional powers have issued strong condemnations, viewing the move as a destabilizing force in the Horn of Africa. Though obviously, the truth is that they just don't want Gazans to ever leave Gaza, because while Israel has been accused of operating an open-air prison in Gaza, in fact, it is the rest of the world, and especially the Arab countries, that insist on not allowing these Gazan prisoners to leave the open-air prison. they don't want to accept them anywhere, they refuse to fly them anywhere, and they can continue to be used as a weapon against Israel. The United States said it was studying the matter. The EU responded with a very weak condemnation of the move, which basically said it threatened the stability and integrity of the region. Which of course is interesting because Somaliland would have much more rights to their own autonomy compared to, I don't know, Kosovo, which had much less rights to be recognized by the EU when it seceded from Serbia. Anyways, the United Arab Emirates very delicately condemned the move and did so quite delayed due to it being a strong supporter of Somaliland, as well as the main backer of the Abraham Accords, cited in the spirit behind the move of this recognition. Now, there's additional moves that went into play recently that pushed this forward. For example, a treaty between Somaliland, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, and I believe the United States as well, that related to cattle export, which is about 70% of Somaliland's annual income. They export beef, goat, sheep, and camel. And up until now, there has been a problem with that export, and it was vetoed by Saudi Arabia due to health concerns because they did not have proper infrastructure for quarantining the cattle before exporting them. Recently, this deal was signed to build an $11 million place for the quarantine by the port of Berbera. So all of this is behind-the-scene plays that allow for this to go forward and also show us that countries that are condemning, such as Saudi Arabia and others, maybe in the sidelines agree with it. Now, this is your friendly reminder to like, subscribe, share. As always, feel free to join the conversation in the comments, but do so respectfully. And remember to check out the March 5th, 2025 episode on Netanyahu's massive plan for the new Middle East. Now, while we're in the region, let's pop over to Yemen. The situation in Yemen involves three main domestic factions, each with different external backers and competing goals. Now, while they were once broadly united against the Houthis, the two southern factions have recently begun fighting each other. Here is the breakdown of the three main forces. 1. The Houthis, Ansar Allah, backed by Iran, control the north, including the capital city Sana'a and the majority of Yemen's population. They are part of Iran's axis of resistance and have gained significant international attention in the last 2 years for their attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. Their goal is to rule all of Yemen and oppose Western Israeli influence in the region. 2. The Presidential Leadership Council, PLC, backed by Saudi Arabia. This is the internationally recognized government of Yemen. Their influence is strongest in the central and eastern parts of the country, like Marib and parts of Hadramaut. They are a coalition of various political and tribal groups. Their most prominent military force currently is the Nations Shield Forces, which is directly funded and trained by Saudi Arabia. Their goal is to restore the unified Yemeni state and defeat the Houthi insurgency. 3. The Southern Transitional Council, STC, backed by the United Arab Emirates, is based in the south, specifically the port city of Aden. Recently, they have aggressively expanded their control into the oil-rich eastern provinces, like Hadramaut. They are a cessationist movement. While they are technically members of the PLC government, Group 2, they maintain their own powerful military, the Southern Armed Forces. Their goal is independence for South Yemen. They want to return to the borders that existed before the North and South unified in 1990. So the biggest change recently is that the Saudi-backed PLC and the Emirate-backed STC are no longer just uneasy allies. STC forces seized control of the Hadramaut and Marha regions. Saudi Arabia views this as a threat to its border security and the stability of the official government. And in the last few days, the Saudi-led coalition, which in the past attacked the Houthis until they made an uneasy truce with them, has threatened direct military action against the STC if it does not withdraw, and there are even reports that indicate Saudi airstrikes have already started. Now, why is this a problem? Because the southern group wishes to secede from Yemen and doesn't necessarily wish to defeat the Houthis. But the bigger problem is the clashes and conflict that it causes between Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, considered by many to be moderate and positive forces in the Middle East, unlike Qatar, Turkey, Iran, and so on. And this conflict is not just in Yemen. They are also backing conflicting forces in Sudan. So, while Israel expands its influence into Somaliland to secure shipping routes and possibly relocate Gazans, Yemen's civil war worsens. The conflict between the southern factions threatens to empower the Houthis and their Iranian backers. Let's hope that the Somaliland Declaration advances swiftly, and finally we will see a mass migration of Gazans out of the Strip. Join us next time for more.